So what we're going to be talking about today is sort of the ins and outs of hosting a town hall, things you need to know, things that are confusing. And also this is a time for us to brainstorm and for us to, you all to ask me questions, because we're always trying to make this sort of easier to understand, but I also recognize that, we have like a couple hundred, hundreds of pages of code and there's documents everywhere and so I totally understand that can be confusing. And so I want to make this as not confusing as possible and hopefully make it so these town halls are easy for you all as I can. So I made a PowerPoint and I'm going to start with that. Don't please interrupt me with questions. I would love for you to do that, and definitely on Zoom. You can ask questions in the chat if you don't want to, but also feel free to just like unmute yourself. Like there's not that many of us here, so this doesn't need to be super formal, but whatever you're comfortable with. I'll try my best to like look for raised hands and look for chat messages, but it might take me a minute if I go off on a rant and I don't see it. So just keep bugging me until I see it. Okay, so raise of hands. How many of you are returning senators? None here. Do we have any returning senators in the chat and on Zoom at all? I'm just curious if everybody's new. Okay, everyone's new. That's super cool. Okay, that's great. So I am now the only person in the room that's ever done a town hall. So I will do my best to try to use my experience here to tell you. So I think the first question that a lot of people ask is, why do I have to do this? And which is a valid question. But really the point is, so you all are representing your units, all of the different graduate and professional students that are in your department and your program. And something that's very difficult as a representative is to actually find time to talk to every single person in your department. I have 150 people in my department. Half of them are at NC State. I don't talk to a lot of them frequently. And so finding, more opportunities to figure out like what are the issues that people are actually having and actually talk to and connect with every single person is super important, and kind of the way that we actually make change happen. Because if we don't know what the problem is, or we don't know how many people are having a problem or having an opinion on something, then it's difficult for us to make change. And so these town halls are sort of an essential way for us to connect with those constituents. So kind of what is a town hall? I think the word town hall sounds super formal. And if you take anything away from this workshop, I just want you to take away that does not have to be a super formal thing. You don't have to do exactly what I'm doing and get up in front of all of your peers and give a speech. Like that is not what a town hall needs to be. Honestly, we just haven't come up with a better word. We've been trying in town halls. We can't come up with something better. The idea of like senator social came up, but that didn't really sound great. So something like that. So, but what this is supposed to be, it's a meeting where you basically this is meant to be a meeting with all of your constituents, with all of the other graduate students in your department, where you're going to discuss your department specific issues. You also can share resources because, GPSG has a lot of stuff, and I'm sure there's plenty of you that you didn't know anything about GPSG until you decided to join as a senator. And so you also can sort of be a person to spread that information to your constituents. And really, it's just a chance for two-way communication. And so this doesn't have to be a formal presentation. It should generally be fun. But that's kind of the big idea. So I'm going to talk a little bit to start about the sort of like the what you have to do, and then we'll talk more about the what you can, and it's up to you. Also, I'm going to close the door because I'm loud. So these are the basic like things you have to do. Number one, you have to have a town hall. You must host a single town hall at some point in either the fall or the spring semester in order to stay in good standing, in order to get your allocation money at the end of the year. It is preferable to have one in the fall. We're kind of trying to do this very recent push to do these earlier. So don't stress if you haven't done it yet. And also if you did it, I don't know why you would be here. So don't stress if you haven't done it yet. It's very normal for people also to do them in January. The big thing is in your head, you need to do this like by or before March, because you're going to hit some deadlines if you wait, or if you have to push it too late. That's going to make it difficult to get like, get everything recognized and get everything working out. So kind of keep in your head before March is when you should be planning on doing this. The two sort of things you have to do in addition to hosting the thing is we have two forms. One is called the Town Hall Notice and Funding Request Form. So whether or not you want money from us, you have to fill out this form to notify us that you're going to have a town hall. Really, the only things that are required on this form are an agenda. Now, and it does not have to be a super detailed agenda. It does not have to be a super, like minute by minute, you're going to talk about, just kind of a vague idea of like, this is where we're going to be. This is some things we'll probably talk about. And, this is the time and that kind of thing. And that's just to sort of let us know, because the nice thing is we keep track of these things over year, and it helps us change things if we're doing things that aren't relevant anymore, or it helps us, even for you all, we can track over 5 years how many people have been showing up or what you've been talking about, and it kind of lets us have more information. The other thing is, if you do want to request funding, you will put a bunch of information in this form. I'm going to wait to describe that. I have a bunch of slides on funding specifically, so we'll come back to that. But just know when I talk about the funding form, that's this form. The second form that you are required to fill out is the post town hall report. And so this is something you'll do after the town hall is finished. The things that are going to be required on this form, one are meeting minutes / summary. Now, you do not have to have someone actively taking word by word minutes in your town hall. We just want a vague description. You can do it in the moment, or you can do it after, like, after you're done, take some notes of the things that you talked about. And so our hope with this is that you'll have some things to report, probably some things that are department specific, and then probably some things that are more general that we can sort of know that you all care about. The other thing that we want to know is an attendance list. Now, if you have 3 people come to your town hall, that's okay. We're not going to it still counts, even if, you have a very small attendance. The reason for the attendance list is just so we can track over time what's working and what's not working. Just so we have some more data. Don't feel like, if you forget a person or whatever, don't stress about that. The big thing with the attendance list, the easiest way to do it is just to remember to bring it and have people sign in. There are a bunch of templates, and I'll talk about this in a minute, on Canvas for you to use, including a sign-in sheet. So if you want something easy, you can just get that template sign-in sheet, print it out real quick, and take it with you. Are there any questions about those 2 things to start with? No, cool. Okay. So now let's talk about funding and how you get approved for funding. So anyone, no matter the size of your department, can get funding. And you basically are automatically approved to spend at $120. So what that means is when you fill out this form, we basically will, what's the word I'm looking for? The chair of the finance committee will look at your application, and without having to do a vote or without having to, for the full finance committee to look at it, can just auto approve you for $120. Now, if you want to do more than $120, the entire finance committee will look at your application and will determine if it's an appropriate amount of money. Now, they're not going to just say, no, you can't have any money. They're just going to look at what it is that you're purchasing and check that it's, things we're able to buy and that it seems like it makes sense for the number of people in attendance. Generally, these types of applications don't don't be nervous that you're going to, not get approved. They will work with you and find something that works. It's just sort of our little check and balance so that you don't actually spend, $1,500 and you have 4 people show up to your event. The thing to know though, is if you want to do, if you want more than $120, you need to submit a month in advance. And so that's just to make sure that you have enough time for the finance committee meeting to happen so that then you can get approved. So those are all the things you have to do to get approved. Now, you'll get a notification, obviously. So that's important to make sure you hear back, but otherwise you're good to go. You are ready to spend your money. So once you've been approved, there's sort of two options. And this is actually true for pretty much any way that you get money from us. But specifically for town halls, there's two ways that you can spend your money. One is something that we are really trying to encourage this year because it's sort of easier for you and easier for us and easier for everybody. And so that's going to be using our purchasing card. It's often called a P card, which basically means the university will use their credit card to purchase your stuff for you. Now, this is really nice because you don't have to put your money up front and you don't have to wait a bunch of time to get reimbursed. So once you're approved for your purchase, you will need to collect your list of items. You'll have to make a budget anyway for that form of like what you're going to spend your money on. So you've already got your budget, bring your budget, and you're going to schedule an appointment at this link. You can also find it on Heal Life, the really long Student Organizations Financial Services Office Heal Life page, kind of a long name. So it's there, or you can use this link. And what you'll do is you'll make an appointment, and that appointment will you'll go in, you'll meet with someone in the finance office, and they will sit with you. It's like 15 to 30 minutes, pretty short, and they'll sit down and figure out your purchasing. One thing to note is that this should be true for nearly everybody. But if by chance your name is not in Heal Life as a senator in GPSG, which most of you should be because I do these manually, but in case I miss someone, it's maybe worth just checking that you're listed as a senator, because that's how they know that you're a senator and you can spend our money. And so they will then help you. So this is kind of an office that we don't run as students. And so they sort of have their own things that they need. So definitely there's contact information on their Heal Life page. So if you're unsure, you have questions, you can absolutely reach out to them. We have a really awesome person now who is a dedicated controller is the name of the position, who is managing our finances specifically. It's like a full-time professional staff member. So that's really exciting because that means it's not just a student who also is a student and has to do student things. We have someone who's dedicated to this. So that means that they should be very available to you to help, which is great. Are there any questions about the purchasing part? Okay, one thing I didn't actually mention is I recommend that you make your appointment 2 weeks in advance. Part of that is because, especially if you're going to order stuff on Amazon, this is really weird and tricky and a weird university thing. If you're going to order stuff on Amazon, we for some reason cannot use Amazon Prime shipping. Don't know why. So if you don't make your appointment 2 weeks in advance, there's a chance that we can't get your stuff shipped to you fast enough. But they can help you with that. So it's just worth planning ahead a little bit if you can. Now, there are totally certain situations where you're just unable to do that in advance. You have to do your purchases yourself, and that's okay. So this method is going to be either you are going to purchase it with your personal bank account, or if you have like an RSO or a student organization that has a bank account, you can have them purchase and be reimbursed. And I believe also, even if like your department, like let's say you're in the biomedical engineering department, that's my department, they can purchase for you and you can have us reimburse that department as well. So I don't have super specifics about how that works. What I would recommend is talking to the finance office, and they will help you with that reimbursement. But this is generally the process for which those things go. So first you got to get approved. We already did that. You need to, once again, get your items that you need to purchase. It's totally very much worth checking the rules on things that you can or cannot purchase with university money. So remember, you cannot buy alcohol with university money. It's fine if it's at your event, but we cannot spend any money on alcohol. We cannot spend money on weapons. We cannot spend money. There's a big list. It's in the code. If you are unsure, let me know. But like food and crafts and all that stuff's fine. So once you do all your purchasing, you're going to have your event, you're going to collect all of your receipts. You have to have your receipts or you cannot get reimbursed. You must have your receipts. They need to be itemized. So they have to have the itemized like things that you're purchasing on those receipts. And then you're going to go to another form. It's going to be on that same student organization's financial office page. I linked it here. You also can find it on their Heal Life page. And that is where you're going to actually submit your receipts. Now, there's a couple of options on there. one is, so there's like personal reimbursement, and then there's student club reimbursement or student organization reimbursement. If you bought it, whether or not you're in a club, it's a personal reimbursement. If it came out of a person that their bank account, it's a personal reimbursement. If it came out of one of those other groups accounts, that's where you can start getting into those other options. It's pretty standard. There's a couple of like little weird questions, but right next to the questions, they'll usually have a little place where they'll tell you more information. And if you ever have a problem, totally you can email me and I can help. The big thing to note, and so this is why I remember when I said you want to do your town hall before March, a big thing to note, and this was a huge issue last year, is that you need to submit these forms prior to May 10th is when they're due. So what that means is if you have a really late town hall and then you try to submit your reimbursement late, it will take forever for you to get your money. And that's just because that's like the end of the financial year for the university. And so they have a lot going on. In fact, really like anytime in late April, early May, it might take more than 5 weeks for you to get your reimbursement. So they say like standard 4 to 5 weeks. If you wait until the end of the semester, it's just going to take forever. So I really, 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 really recommend that you do these earlier than that. Okay, other question.
Yeah, my question is about buying stuff with the P card. If we get this other like financial organization group to like buy us food, but how does like picking it up work?
Okay, good. So the question was, if we get another person like our department or something to purchase for us, how does picking up work? Like picking up food?
Yeah, like if we're, if we order from a place and we go to pick up the food, how are we verifying? Like,
good question.
Picking it up?
So that would be something you would work with the person who's doing the purchasing. So for personally, when I've done this in the past, so I like order GPSG food pretty regularly. It's called, when you pick it up, the name is GPSG and you just go pick it up or have it delivered. I think whoever's making the purchase can either put your name in or they can just sort of put a generic name. There's something, you also can get it delivered if you want to, like, that's also totally an option. But if you're going to pick it up, just know the name it's ordered under, and I think you should be fine. I've never had an issue with that in all of the times I've bought stuff. So
my question is if we do something like a delivery, are there guidelines on tipping delivery drivers? I know my other university was that we're not allowed to tip, period.
Good question. Yeah, so the question was if there's any guidelines about tipping. I don't think so, because I've never come across it, and I always tip like 15% pretty consistently. I've never thought about it, to be honest. And I've been doing it a while and no one said anything to me. So I'm gonna go with no, there's no issue. I mean, I guess the knowledge that the tipping does come out of the amount of money that you were approved for. So just keep that in mind that, if you've been approved for $200, don't buy $200 worth of food and then you have to tip on top of that. That would be my only thought. I feel like my undergrad university had something about that too, but I haven't heard anything here. So I think that's fine. Cool. Okay. So I'm going to from here, I'm going to sort of just give some tips, some suggestions, some more light things kind of from here on out. Like, don't feel like you have to do anything that I'm saying. This is just sort of suggestions. You can do this how you want to do it. So I just had some sort of final tips and suggestions in logistics about this. If you need help reserving a room, we have office assistants who they reserve this room for me. They can reserve basically any room that's on the university's like room reservation system. If you don't have access to that room reservation system, we can do it for you. So you can totally email me. You also can email, we have a email called studentgovernment@unc.edu. You can email that email address, or you can just email me if that's easier, and we can get that figured out. One thing I want to note is be realistic about attendance. I would say don't expect every single person in your department to show up unless maybe you have a department of 10 people. I know that there are departments of like 10 people and sometimes they all come, and that's awesome, but I don't have all 150 people coming to mine. I usually aim for like half is a pretty good estimate. So when you're thinking about ordering food, keep that in mind, be realistic. Remember that this is a chance to build community. So make this fun. Don't make it suck, because then no one wants to come because it's boring. So if you can do something to make it fun, we'll talk more about that in a minute. You don't have to call this a town hall on your advertisements. You can call it a social meeting or a get together or whatever you want. It doesn't, if you think that's too serious and you don't think people will come, call it whatever you want. Don't worry about the wording. Remember to advertise. The more of a heads up you can give to people, the better. Like at least a week or two would be the best. Also remember to follow up like the day or the day before, because people forget. If you have a department calendar or a department newsletter, great place to advertise for these types of things. Okay, and now let's talk about how to make your town hall fun. So I have a couple of suggestions. I would love to hear other people's suggestions. These are sort of things that I've heard of happen recently, but there's a lot of different things. And I'd love to like write down any suggestions anybody has. But some that I came up with is like having a craft or activity. So I know last year we had people, one of the town halls they gave away plants and let people paint the pots. Or we had the idea of painting a pumpkin this year. Obviously that's kind of, we're ending pumpkin season, but you know, you could paint a sign or a snowflake or a insert, you know, time of year holiday that is around this time and do something like that. You can borrow board games and art supplies from the university. I'm not gonna lie, I spent like 20 minutes earlier trying to find a link to this online and I couldn't, but I know Brian told me, our advisor, that you can do this in the union. They have like board games, they have art supplies. I'll try to figure out exactly who this is and I just have time to ask him, but you can borrow things from the university, like art supplies and board games. You can borrow sports equipment, all kinds of things from the university. You are students and you're able to do that. So if you don't want to spend a bunch of money, that's something you can do. Also feel free to co-host or co-attend with another event. If you have a department social already happening, if there's like a cool, let's say you're in the theater department and you all as a group already wanted to go see a show, or go see some lecture, or go see some performance, like make it a thing with that. Like, you know, get everyone together for a meal right before, and then you can chat a little bit and then go over to the performance. Even if there's another department that you interact with, or if there's another unit. So for example, I know we have 8 units that are all in Gillings. If you're in Gillings and you want to host it with the other Gillings units, do one big one if you want, that's fine. Just fill out the form separately so that we count it. Like, I don't want to lose anybody, but if you can absolutely have one big event, that's fine. And as always, people show up for food, so have food if you can. I don't know if anyone did this, all the logistics stuff. Does anyone have any other good thoughts about fun town hall stuff? Because I would love to hear inspiration or ideas. I don't know if anyone knows of like local events going on, or maybe like a social that you've had for your department that maybe was really successful.
Well, so it's not for a town hall, but for another event, we had somebody write calligraphies for people who showed up of their name in another language.
That's so cool. Oh my gosh.
And then they could take it home and keep it and put it in a frame or something and say, that's my name in the other language.
That is such a cool idea. Okay, I love that. Yeah, you definitely could. You could just find someone that wants to do that. You actually can hire people too. You just go talk to the business office on how to do that. But like, if you want to hire a magician, you can hire a magician. But that's a really good suggestion. I think that's really fun. The kind of the deadlines to think about. So in order, I'll go back because I know that there were kind of 2 different deadlines that I said. So one deadline is if you want to use a purchasing card to purchase things, you kind of want to make your appointment about 2 weeks in advance, but you have to make the appointment after you've been approved. So that's one thing to think about. The other thing to think about is if you're going to request funding, basically before that, you would have to either do 10 days if you're doing under 120 or 30 days if you're doing more than 120. And if you want to know, like, if you're not sure you're quite going to hit that 30-day mark and you think you're going to be a little short, please email the finance committee, because they can absolutely, like, if the timing works out, like, they might be able to squeeze you in. So like, don't feel like, oh my gosh, it's 29 days and I'm screwed in your head. So, you know, if you're thinking the end of February, okay, I gotta have this appointment mid-February, so I need to be thinking in January is when I need to be submitting my request. So does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So for booking spaces for this meeting or this town hall, Can we do spaced outside of the university or do we have?
You totally can. I think the only thing to consider is like, you know, accessibility for people that don't have transportation. But outside of that, you can have it wherever you want. Preferably like in the state, I guess would be good, you know, have it, don't go too far. But I know last year, I think someone did their town hall at that creamery place. I don't remember the name of it. There's like yeah, Mapleview. I think they did it at Mapleview. So like that's, if you want to do it, I mean, Franklin Street's super easy. You could very easily do that. But if you want to go further, just consider like how people are going to get there. Or maybe consider doing it hybrid, but there's no restriction or reason you can't do that. We really try to leave this super open for y'all to interpret for what works for you. Can fully remote students host virtual town halls? That is a great question. So like if both of your senators are virtual, absolutely. I mean, that makes sense. And especially, I know there's a lot of departments that have a lot of virtual students, and that's fine. I'll give the example. So my department does a hybrid system for our town halls. Part of the reason is because some of us are virtual and some of us, so we're split between 2 universities, and trying to get anyone to go from Raleigh to Chapel Hill or Chapel Hill to Raleigh is impossible. So what we do is we actually will reserve a room on both campuses, make a Zoom meeting that connects the 2 rooms, and then also anyone can attend virtually. So there's no restriction against doing it remotely. But you know, be creative with it. So I mean, I can't think of any issue with it though.
And then Katie, is there any rules about like just drop-in type town halls for like I have a really, really big cohort and there's no way I'm going to get the majority of them in, say, a single hour. Could I do like from this hour to this hour, like come get bagels and coffee and learn about things?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I recommend it. In fact, you know, I think the best thing to do is to print out a piece of paper for them to take with some like, you know, like all the resources they might need. And I should mention in Canvas, we have a bunch of templates. There's maybe I'll pull that up in a second. Actually, there's a bunch of templates and a bunch of stuff that you can use. So if you want to do something like that and have a handout and then basically be like, hey, you know, what's going on? You know, just kind of chat with them. I know people also will do ahead of time. They'll do a form and have people fill out a form with like the things that they want to talk about or the issues that they're having. And then you can bring it up during the thing that you're having, but then you kind of have everything written down ahead of time. Also something you can do. But yeah, there's no restriction. You don't have to have everyone, you know, in a seat at the same time. That's definitely not required. Pull up, just show you some of the documents that we have, because I think it's worth seeing where they're located. So this is what it looks like for you all. So if you go over here to files, specifically, there is a folder here called Town Hall Resources. And in Town Hall Resources, there's a couple of things. There's the PowerPoint I just gave. I already put it in there. So that's there. That's this Town Hall Workshop PowerPoint. There is a set of guidelines that is kind of our formally written out guidelines. And you can check this if you want to kind of like read exactly like what the formal requirements are. This also like the planning section here. This is just kind of like how we recommend you do it. You know, set the agenda, make sure you publicize, all that stuff. Then there's also a checklist. I didn't talk about this too much. This checklist is fabulous. This was made by our SOGAPS committee last year, and it kind of talks about the sort of the system, like the things that you should think about as early as possible, 1 to 2 weeks before and during the town hall, stuff to remember. And then additionally this is also on this page. This is so this is like an example of a agenda that you could use. This is, people use it, you don't have to use it again, but if you want to use this, and here's also the attendance sheet that we have, if you want to use the attendance sheet. And then the rest of these, there's a bunch more templates on here in this templates folder. There's another agenda template, a slides template. If you want to do slides, you can do that. You don't have to, but if you want to, that's in there. There's also some examples. I threw some examples in here of past years, things that they did. So here's like a flyer that somebody made. I highly recommend Canva. If you've never used Canva, like Canva, great place to make flyers very easily. So here's an example. And then an example minutes. This person took some super detailed minutes. Don't feel like you need to take this detailed minutes, but just in case you wanted to see minutes, that's an example. Again, you don't have to go that detailed. It's just an option for you. So those are all resources for you. And of course, I am always available to you all. You know, if you have questions and you need help